Good evening and welcome to Creatively Speaking. I'm Zenobia A. Rickford, and the topic today is, what is your painting saying? And we have a guest speaker, Michael Singletary,
Thank you.
and we have two artists from Prince George's Artists Association, Michael Spears
Happy to be here.
and Lorraine
Hello.
Harris. And our moderator today is E.L. Whitley.
Good evening. Welcome to Creatively Speaking, Michael.
I'm happy to be here.
Oh, we're glad to have you. Michael J. Singletary, artist, filmmaker, radio and television producer, has exhibited in over 300 different fine art exhibits. He has exhibited with many noted artists, including Andy Warhol, Romare Bearden, Chuck Close, Red Grooms, David Hockney, Robert Indiana, Llewellyn Nesbeth, Klaus Olenberg, Fernando Botero, Philip Perlstein, and many, many more. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
I would like to take this time to introduce to some and present to all Michael Singletary, artist extraordinaire. Tell us, Michael, about who you are. Who is Michael Singletary?
Michael Singletary is an artist. I was always an artist. I started off as an artist when I was very, very young. Ever since I can remember, especially even around kindergarten, I was drawing and painting, and I feel particularly blessed because I think I really started drawing when I was in church. I used to trace everything. Those little cards they used to give you out in church.
Yeah.
Yes.
I used to trace that because I was so anxious to go to school that a lot of times, like when I was growing up, we had 4 brothers and sisters, and there was no Sesame Street back those days.
Mm-hmm.
There was no
Yes.
Nickelodeon.
No.
All it was, and there wasn't even after school centers.
No.
And I used to have to stay with my mom's, and my mom sometimes she had another younger brother with me, and he and I had to stay at home. So when I stayed at home, well, I basically drawed and tried to teach myself how to read because I was so anxious to get to school, and it wasn't happening fast enough for me. So I feel particularly blessed because of the church. Because in church, you had to do posters and banners and all that, and I just did it, and it came very, very natural for me to do it. So I'm here today, and I'm happy, particularly happy because, I've been doing this for 40 years, and I've seen a lot of people pass through, a lot of really great painters pass through, and I feel really, really happy that I'm still doing it. And I've been fortunate and blessed to be able to go and study in Europe and study in Africa when I was 19. Studied the New School of Research, Social Research when I was 12. Studied with Benny Andrews and Romare Bearden and a host of all these great, great, great black painters. And I didn't appreciate it as much as I do now, but it was a wonderful, wonderful kind of a life, even though there was some ups and downs. So real happy, I went through school, and I guess I heard a quote from Charles Barkley, the basketball player. He said, and I'm paraphrasing him, he said that they paid me to play basketball, and now they're paying me to watch basketball because now he's a commentator.
Yes.
And he said, I'm a very happy man. And those are my sentiments exactly. I feel like I'm really happy I'm still here,
Yes.
which is more important than
Yes.
anything else.
Right.
Most definitely.
And I'm surrounded by so many great painters, and I've been around great painters, so I guess in a lot of ways I feel great about doing some of the things that I do.
Okay. Well, could you tell us about, this is my own curiosity, tell us about Bill Cosby and how he was instrumental in opening the doors of opportunity for you in the world of film and television.
Well, I studied, my last year in college, I had studied, I had been to Africa during the summer, you know, with this, the Union Theologic Seminary. I was the youngest person there. Also in that whole group was Betty Shabazz, Eric Lincoln, and all these incredibly great writers. And I was a painter, you know, and I didn't know Africa. At first we went to Paris, and that was like really extremely, I was extremely happy for being there. And then we went to the University of Ghana, and of course, being 19 years old in 1969, you know, I was just overjoyed and overwhelmed at the fact that I can study African sculpture. I found out right away that I couldn't carve wood the way that they, you know, I mean, it looked like it was fairly simple, and those guys was just chipping away, and I was like, oh, I can't do it. And then I just no wood sculpture for me. But the Bill Cosby thing happened because someone told me, first of all, I had a cousin who was directing Cosby, but he had nothing to do with the set designers or anything like that. But just out of curiosity, if we all can remember the popularity of Bill Cosby and what he did for black painters, he was putting black art on television. Right. I mean, that was something that was never done before. And I was amazed. And I said, you know, just out of a hunch, why don't I just send him some stuff? Mm-hmm. And I was living in Mount Vernon at the time, and my 3 doors down, Felicia Rashad was living. And, you know, she was the wife of Bill Cosby on the Cosby Show.
Right.
And she said, yeah, send it down and see what happens, you know. And then all of a sudden, I got a letter from California that said they want to use some pieces on the Cosby Show. And there was some print pieces, and one of the pieces was the house party. And that was a very, very, very popular piece for me. And, you know, it led to other things. Mm-hmm. Because if we can all remember, back in those days, I mean, you know, we're talking about there was no black television shows on air at all. And, you know, maybe you saw Diane Carroll, maybe you saw, every now and then, or Ed Sullivan show you would see Sammy Davis, or sometimes you'll see the Supremes, and we all get, I mean, I knew when somebody black was on the Ed Sullivan show because the neighborhood was empty. The whole neighborhood. Everybody was like crowded around these small black and white television sets.
I remember that.
Yes, yes.
And, absolutely. You know, I mean, those kind of things were just as inspiring for me as a young artist to see black successful people as being around successful painters. You know, because I was around a lot of successful painters. One of the people I was around was, one of my best teachers was Max Ginsberg, who was like in charge of the whole Ashcan School of Painting. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it was just incredible that I was able to work with them. But, you know, people that influenced me a lot were, I mean, James Brown. I mean, because I was just happy for his success. Mm. Yeah. And I wanted to be that person. And actually, I thought at one time that I was going to be the first black painter, because nobody ever talked about black art when I was growing up. Yeah. And there was no black books. The Porter book, the Negro Artist, might have been a great publication. And I tried to meet every single artist in that book after I found out. But I remember when I was 12 or 11 or 12, and I was going to the new school on Saturday, I ran into Benny Andrews, who I was so happy to meet because he was the first black artist that I had had any association on a professional art level. Mm-hmm. And you know, Benny's a very fair-skinned brother, so I wasn't really quite sure at first.
If he was
And
African
then,
American.
but Benny in turn introduced me to all the black painters that he knew, including Romeo Bearden, including Marla Ryder, Huey Lee Smith. All those guys were in New York, and they all were associated with the Art Students League. And even though I wasn't associated, I was just happy and relieved that I didn't have to be the first guy that was black.
Yes.
And, you know, because it was that period where
that's not
it was
pressure.
about like, you know, the first. I mean, you know, that credit to your race crap.
Yeah.
All that stuff that they used to say
Right.
back in the day. You
Yeah.
know. I mean, one of the biggest thrills of my whole life was meeting #1, Jackie Robinson.
Oh, wow.
I met Jackie Robinson, and I wound up doing an art show when I was 13 years old at the New York City World's Fair, and he was there, and it was just like, oh my God, because that's what my father used to talk about was Jackie Robinson. And the second really encouraging thing was I met Sammy Davis Jr. when I was like about 13 years old. They had these things called the soirees in Greenwich Village, and I had my artwork up there, and I saw little Sammy. I'm 6'5", so I couldn't call him Little Sammy. And
Right.
I met Sammy Davis, and that was enough. I mean, I didn't want to wash my hands for a week because Sammy was as large as Michael Jackson at that time.
Yeah.
Sammy was huge. And those are the people, I mean, I couldn't even tell my friends and say, yo, guess what? I met Sammy, and I'm doing some work with Jackie Robinson at the Singer Pavilion, where my artwork is featured, and the New York City World's Fair. And even then, that didn't really mean that much because I thought it was going to keep coming and it's going to be easy. It didn't. I mean, later on, it didn't happen but, you know, art got me into everything that I ever wanted to do, even film and television later.
Right.
And I don't know, I guess I'm fairly good.
So you sort of answered one of my questions because I said of all of your endeavors, which one do you feel had the greatest impact on you as an artist? And I think you've answered that question with the two paramount people in your life that you met, Jackie Robinson and
Sammy Davis
Davis
Jr.
Jr.
And the other person was Gordon Parks Jr.
Oh, yes.
Oh.
Gordon
Yes.
Parks probably did more to help me in terms of, I mean, not personally, but you know, I wound up working with him later when I was working in film. But I saw an article in Life magazine on gangs, and I was fascinated about it. I don't know whether or not it was just because there was black people in the gangs, and I kind of related to, because in my neighborhood there was a lot of gangs. And a lot of that stuff, and I was like, wow, who is this guy? And I didn't know if he was black or white, but I just thought his photography was just stunning. And then when I found out that he was black, African American, and I looked him up, and they said, this guy write operas, he write plays, he writes movies, he does poetry. And that was so important for me to know that, because when I was growing up, they used to ask you questions like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you had to pick one thing.
Right.
And I was like, no, I want to be him. This guy does it all. I mean, I said, this guy's writing an opera. I wasn't even aware of operas at that time. And he's writing plays, and he's a painter. And I said, I want to be a painter, writer, and I put it all in one big word. And, you know, and then that kind of made my life better. But, you know, I met him later, and I worked with his son on 2 really terrible films. And Gordon Parks Jr., before he died, of course.
Okay.
And I later met him and got to know him a lot better when I was with the Directors Guild of America, and I met him on the elevator, and this is like when I was working, I met him on the elevator, and I said, "Oh man, you're Gordon Parks. I gotta tell you stuff." And I think I probably wore his ear out. And we started talking, and we got to know each other, and he got to know some of his family. And you know, the last time I think I talked, and then he told me something that really surprised me. He said, "I used to play basketball. I used to be one of the best." And I said, "Nah, man, this is too much. I mean, you did all that because I followed his pattern." Because
Yes.
at that time, you have to understand that they weren't telling black kids to, you know, go and become a doctor, a lawyer, or become an artist or an architect. I wanted to be an architect at first, but then the math was just a little bit too heavy for me. And I was like, can't. And I was good in math. I was incredible. But I think that I fell into the fine arts area because that's what I was really, really good at. And I was fortunate enough to go to
Meant to be.
art and design high school, where I met people like Hollingsworth, Alvin Hollingsworth, who became a buddy, and we started doing exhibits together. And the most important thing was I was like the young maverick, I guess. I mean, you know, because I always took that for granted. Because, you know, I mean, I always had this dual thing going on because I also was an athlete, and I wanted to be an athlete, and I just kind of took art for granted a lot of ways, but I painted every single day. And I drew every single day, and I was so curious about learning about techniques and painting styles, because my first person that I really fell in love with in terms of being an artist was Rembrandt. And we took a field trip to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, and I used to write down the subway stops. And I found that it was 17 minutes to get from my house to the Metropolitan Museum of Art from the South Bronx. And I knew that when I got out of school at 3, I would run, because I had to be home at 5. I would run to the train, get on the train, get to the Metropolitan by 3:30, look at 1 or 2 pieces of work, back on the subway. I did this for like almost 2 years. Because if my mother knew I was doing what I was doing,
She would
I
have
would have
been
got
upset.
I would have got really seriously whooped.
Okay.
And I wasn't allowed to do it.
Okay.
You know?
Having the knowledge that there are many artists out there, what advice would you give to an emerging artist?
Just to keep working, because it doesn't come right away. Even if it happens right away and you do a style that works for you, I mean, it's just like the music business in a lot of ways. You could be
Yeah.
hot one year and the next year you may not go anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, there are artists that have a staying power, but that happens in all the arts, whether it's dance or music. The people have a staying power. The Andy Warhols, sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's, but you know, most artists, unfortunately, are not going to get there. But you know,
Right.
art is not about like getting there in terms of making money. Art is up here.
Yeah.
It's the heart.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
It's
is.
something that you have to do and
Passion.
believe. When you start following trends and styles, you're going to get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
Right.
Very, very easy to get in trouble because all of a sudden, if it doesn't work, then it becomes like a career. And there's no such thing as a career in art. There's about, it's a lifestyle. It's you, and you make a choice. And I knew that when I was very young, because when I was young, I used to be down in the village, and there were some really incredible painters. And I said, how come you guys are not making it like
Right.
this? And they was just saying, don't worry about it. If you do it because
Do it.
you love it.
Right.
That's right.
And I'm just fortunate,
That's
like I
right.
said earlier,
That's right.
that I'm still doing it. I mean, I'm doing it okay.
Passion.
And that's what I do.
That's what you do.
Well, this has been so enlightening, Michael, and we're so glad that you're here. We have 2 members who are fairly new to our organization, but they're not new to the world of art. Lorraine Harris has a beautiful piece in front of our table, and I'd like for her to talk about her work.
We need to
Well, as
focus.
you can see, this is one of my abstract pieces that I completed about a year ago. And it's the nature of abstract that there's no particular subject matter. It depends on the viewer's experience in terms of what he sees in a particular piece of work. I mean, I can elaborate a bit on what it means to me,
Yes.
but I really don't like to guide the viewer into how he should feel about a particular painting. I feel that they should get into their psyche, and it's their experiences that should determine the context in which they view the painting. Although this work is untitled,
Yes.
I tend to call it Mercy.
Okay. I was about to ask, in terms of the piece, what are you trying to communicate to the public?
I think with all of my work, I try to communicate, I guess, a sense of compassion. I would like for people to look at my work and actually feel something. It doesn't matter exactly what that feeling is, but if it evokes some kind of emotion in you, then I think that my mission has been accomplished. The reason that I refer to this piece as Mercy, because there is, even though it's abstract, there is a bit of a representational, figurative piece over in on the far right-hand side. And it seems as if there's a couple there.
I do
and
see
they're
that.
going through something that appears to be very traumatic.
Yes.
Yes.
She
I
has
see
her
it too.
arms raised up, and he
Yeah.
has his hands, beside
Yeah, on
his
the
head.
left.
And
Yeah,
I
I
would
see
think
it.
that at that point, it seems like it was such a traumatic period that they were going
Yes.
through that I thought Mercy would be something that would be appropriate, and that's
Okay.
why I refer to it as Mercy.
Now, Michael, you have two beautiful pieces. And Michael, tell us a little bit about your background, because I understand you were a gallery owner, and you've also had a piece of artwork in a film.
Yes, I had the James Gallery for about 3 years up on Georgia Avenue, about a block from Silver Spring, and I started the James Gallery and named it after my father, who had passed. And the gallery went along fine, and then after we had some problems, which were the shootings and all of that.
Yes, in 2000.
In 2000, yeah.
Yeah.
It started going downhill because one of them happened in the area, and I couldn't recover from that. So the opportunity came up for me to go back to school, and that's what I took. The State of Play was the name of the movie, and somebody from Universal Pictures saw it at WPFW, and they contacted me, and they licensed a print to be shown in the movie, and that, I think it was on, I'm not sure, 2006 or something like that.
And if you recall, I told you I have that movie, and I love it. I've looked at it several times, and I keep saying I'm going to put that movie on again and look at it again and see if I can find that
I never
painting.
really looked at the entire movie, but I've been told, my daughter told me that she looked at it, but she didn't know if she saw it, and she didn't think so with so much going on at one time.
Yeah.
But I've never really looked at the complete movie, but certainly they paid a license fee and they went ahead and put it in the movie.
Oh, that's
or
cool.
at least they had the opportunity to put it in
Put
the
it in
movie.
the movie. So what is your inspiration? Let's see, you have two beautiful abstracts there.
My inspiration, I do purely non-objective abstracts, and my inspiration comes from the music world. Okay. I like music. I use music, and I take the creative license from the parallel universe, or the multiverses, and have come up with a premise or concept that music takes us to another world. And that's where I tried to go to interpret my art. This one particular piece is called Breaking Aftermath. It was did behind 50 Cent's piece, The Club. I used to stay in the club, so that hits home with me. And the line work is rooted in line. All of my work is rooted in line. And this is really called Breaking Aftermath after that piece. And as I use a flat ground and of course white reverse out. And I don't plan a piece. I stopped that a long time ago. I go in after the music fills me up. Okay, I go and let the melody and the rhythm guide me into what it's going to be. And sometimes I use a minimalist approach, which is what this piece over here is called Soft Rocks. I didn't go in it to be an organic piece, but it turned out to be more of the natural world. But there are minimalist lines in it, very few, and it worked with that particular piece.
And what are the mediums that you?
This is mixed media. This right here is watercolor. Soft Rocks is watercolor, acrylics, and charcoal. This one here is acrylics and charcoal only.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, a
nice.
little pastel in it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And I don't want to neglect our moderator because she is a surrealist. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I am an artist. I'm a painter. I'm a surrealist. I like to take people into a world that really doesn't exist. It only exists in my mind. And I like to take people on journeys. I look at my art as going on a journey, and it could be my own personal journey. I never thought of it in that respect until just here of late. I started looking at all my works and where I was when I met you in 2008,
Yes.
and where I've come from. I was painting all of my life, but I stopped and became a teacher and teaching
didn't
small
really
children.
stop.
No, I didn't stop because I majored in early childhood education, where art was an integral part of the curriculum. So it was very easy for me to continue to be creative, but not until I got out of the school system was I able to create things that I have always wanted to paint, as I did some years prior to going into the teaching profession, because I went into the teaching profession quite late. So 30 years had lapsed being in the school system to going back to
To your
painting to what I wanted to paint. So now I'm just painting everything, because I'm like a kid in a kid who just
Candy
got
store.
glasses for the first time and he couldn't see for a long time, and then all of a sudden when he puts these glasses on, the world just opens up to him and he sees things. Well, this is what happened to me after I retired. The world opened up to me, and now I can paint what EL wants to paint.
I can relate to what you're saying when you
Yes.
say that it's a journey. I think we had a conversation before that sometimes it's almost like therapy for me.
Yes.
I think I made the comment to you that I'm not sure if I'm painting the picture sometimes or if the painting is actually painting me.
Yes,
Right.
it's true. So I agree with that. And we're going to wrap up, but we would like to you to talk about where you're showing now.
I am now exhibiting at Busboys and Poets. It's incredible. Somebody said, listen, it's like a restaurant kind of thing. But I'm showing the jazz series, and I'm showing the and all the work that I used in the Spike Lee's movie, Mo Better Blues.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
Yes.
I got the painting with right over Denzel's bed.
Yeah, I
the big
saw it.
painting.
Yeah,
And it's like
it is
hot,
huge.
man.
Yes, yes.
And it was one of the first paintings that was used in the jazz series.
Yeah, I zeroed in on that.
It's Busboys and Poets and on the 14th Street.
Well, thank you so much to all of you, and especially to you, Michael,
Thank you.
and the other Michael over here,
Thank
who
you.
is a new member, and Lorraine, who is a new member. I'm so
Thank
glad
you.
that they chose Prince George's Artists Association to come. Thank you, and goodbye.